Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Abilene People, the podcast here on Big Country Homepage, where we talk to Abilene's most interesting people. And I think Joe Calderon certainly qualifies for that. I don't know you at all, but boy, oh boy, what an impressive resume you've got. And you know what we're going to do? We're just going to start here. What got my attention and how I met you was somebody recommended you to me, well, our mutual friend Myra Dean, and then you sent me a couple of statements that you are currently working to bring all disenchanted voters of the area together to focus on the issues that unite us instead of the ones that divide us. Now, man, that's right in my sweet spot. I love that stuff. And then you've got another one. You're focusing on community outreach and engagement, voter education and registration, and improving political discourse across political ideologies. So let's talk about all of that.
All right.
I want to get there, but first, tell me a little bit about you. Born and raised in Abilene?
Yes, born and raised in Abilene, Hendrick Hospital, a long time ago.
Now, see, that hurts me because you're younger than me.
Okay.
But you lived in Abilene for years.
My whole life, except for the last 15 years of my military career. But up to then, went to Abilene High, graduated, went to ACU for a semester, ran out of money, and then did multiple different odd jobs. Worked at Hastings when Hastings was here. Worked at Cactus Moon when Cactus Moon was Cactus Moon. So
man, you're old school.
I am. And
so you joined the Air Force, and if I've got the story right, you didn't really think they would accept you. Why is that?
Well, no, I mean, I expected the Air Force to be a little more discerning, I guess. So essentially, what it boils down to is I had no direction. I had no career. I was dating a girl at the time. Her dad was a retired Air Force guy. Her brother was in the Air Force. Her sister was dating a guy in the Air Force. It was a big Air Force thing. And her brother was having a promotion ceremony, so I went over for the party. I was 20 years old at the time. May or may not have ingested a few alcoholic beverages and got a little brave and started talking myself up. And people were asking me, you know, what are you doing? What do you do for work? And I was telling them, I work part-time here, I work part-time here, I work part-time here. Like, as I kept saying it, I realized I don't really do anything. Like, I have jobs, but I don't have careers. My ex-father-in-law at the time said, well, why don't you join the military, join the service? You know, get a good pay, steady job, good insurance for your health care. If you want to marry my daughter, you got to be able to give her a future. Again, I'm about 6 sheets to the wind. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So Monday morning, he calls me up, hey, we're going to the recruiter's office. I could have said no. I easily could have said no, but I didn't want to look bad in front of him. So I was like, okay, I'll go. No way they're going to take me. I had a misdemeanor for possession of marijuana when I was 19. And I was like, they're not going to take me. And that's when I learned about waivers. Pretty much anything can be waived. You don't have a left foot, we can write a waiver for that. You can't see, we'll write it. So they wrote a waiver. 6 months later, I was on my way to basic. My first airplane flight, 45 minutes from Dallas to San Antonio. Nervous as hell. Drank 2 little bottles of rum on the plane down to basic training.
So you, in your Air Force career, and you were in for how many years?
23 years.
You have as many active tours, as anybody I've ever spoken with. You... let's see. You worked on B-1s here at Dyess, retrained to fly C-130s, and you did search and rescue in Tucson, Arizona. Right. 7 years on gunships, C-130s out of Clovis. Mm-hmm. You retired at Tinker in Oklahoma City. But I mean, you had 8 deployments in that time frame in Afghanistan, also Iraq,
most
also
of them were
Syria.
In Afghanistan. Some were...
Joe, man, you've been around.
A lot of us have. I mean, pretty much anybody in the military, especially if you're an operator, if you're flying or you're a ground operator or you did some kind of support for those individuals, between 2002 and 2018, 19, I mean, the deployment rate is pretty high. The ops tempo was crazy high because we were in Afghanistan, we were in Iraq, we were in Syria, I mean, that's not even mentioning Africa and other parts of the world that we operate in. So if you're in the military and you don't deploy on a regular basis, it usually means you have a career where, you know, physical therapy, you're in the pharmacy or something. All important jobs, but they don't send them overseas. Those are home station jobs. But for the most part, if you work on any kind of aircraft, you're going to deploy.
But you seem to be pretty humble about it all. You did some pretty brave things, went to some pretty bad places, and I'm sure in the time, and you don't You were just doing what you were doing.
I was scared. Sure. My first deployment, I swore, because our tents, we were living in tents in Oman, and our flight line wasn't too far from where our tents were. And I remember my first night being there and trying to sleep, and I'm hearing these loud roars, and I'm like, the Afghans are going to bomb us. I didn't realize the Afghans didn't have an Air Force. It was our planes. But I was so naive. That's the first time I ever left the country. The first time I ever left the state was to go to Iraq or to Oman to go fight in Afghanistan. But I'm humbled because there are so many more service members who have done as much or more than me that I personally know. Like, I am friends with people who have done way more than I've done. They've done more deployments. They've seen more bad stuff. They've been in more terrible situations than I have. I've been in plenty, but I can name off the top of my head at least 5 people that I know that I consider friends that I talk to on a regular basis, that if you listen to them and you knew what they did, it does humble what I've done. Now,
yeah, well, I talked to a special forces guy years ago when I was in humanitarian aid, and I was over in Kurdistan, northern Iraq, and he had a really great line. He goes, "Hey, man, it ain't a competition. We're all in this together." And I think obviously you have that attitude. You know, it's not comparing, but still, nevertheless, you know, for the civilian among us just watching 8 deployments, that's just
I get the perspective, because before I was in the military, I thought anybody who was in the military was just, you know, on a different level.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent we are, but we're also just we're Americans. We're just a slice of our own population, good and bad.
So you got out and then moved back to Abilene. And you're doing some different things now, but one of the things you're doing is you're volunteering in the political space to try to bring people together. Can you describe that for us? Because that fascinates me. Because this point in the conversation, had I not started there, I don't know that I would have thought that's where we were headed. You know, that you are working to bring disenchanted voters together on issues that unite us, not divide us. That you are focusing on community outreach and engagement, trying to motivate people to come together, the esprit de corps approach. I don't know that I would have gotten there, but I don't mean that to say that military guys wouldn't take us there. Obviously, you are. How did you get there?
So growing up, I grew up as a Republican. I wanted to be Ronald Reagan. I remember being a kid and just thinking that's the guy I want to be. Countless reasons why I wasn't, but even when I joined the military, I considered myself a conservative Republican, fiscally conservative Republican, limited government, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't until the 2000 Republican primary between John McCain and George Bush that I became a little disenchanted, because I saw how the RNC, in conjunction with the Bush campaign, essentially railroaded a war hero to me. So that kind of.
And that's how you saw McCain. That's
how I saw McCain. I grew up in Texas. I knew George Bush. I knew his flaws and his good things, but I knew McCain as a military member. I mean, we all knew who John McCain was. We knew, you see him on the Senate floor with his arm, and you know why that arm is that way. So the treatment, the way they treated him, was kind of what led me towards being a little upset with or disenchanted with the Republican Party. And then in 2002 into 2003, leading up to the second Iraq War, the invasion, that's when I completely got disenchanted with the Republican Party, because I saw the way that they were lying to the American people to justify invading a sovereign nation, making up stories about WMDs, and they were supporting the Taliban. And as one of those quote unquote pawns that were going to be sent out to potentially, fight and die, most of my friends were military. That means they're sending my friends too. So that upset me. So that's when I switched. Now I'm an independent. When I was in Arizona, I was a registered independent. When I was in Mexico, registered independent. Oklahoma City, same thing. Here, there's no party. You don't declare what your party is, but I still consider myself an independent because I still have some what people would consider conservative views. However, it seems now that those views, the majority of my views are not right-leaning. When I was in Oklahoma City, there was a very large group of what I would call independent people. They might have been registered Democrats or might have been registered Republicans, but they didn't ascribe to those political ideologies. We all got along. We all agreed on the majority of topics and issues, so we fought for those. When I came down here, I was looking for a similar group, and I couldn't find one. You either had the Republican Party or you had the Democrat Party. I reached out to both of them. The only one that got back to me was the Democrat Party. They said, come out, meet some of our people, get involved in some of our things, and see what we're doing. And that's when I did. I met At the time, I didn't know who he was. Sammy Garcia was the chair. I just went to a Donuts with Democrats thing they had on Saturday, showed up, saw him sitting at a table by himself, decided to start talking to him. And we started talking about, he started asking me what I wanted out of politics, out of political discourse. And I told him, I want us to stop focusing on the divisive issues. Those issues can be important to a lot of people, absolutely. But if we don't focus on the important issues, the divisive issues will never get taken care of.
For example, you would say, don't focus on transgender athletes, focus on the cost of bread and eggs and butter.
The things that affect all Americans. So we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I look at it that way. The base has to get taken care of before anything else can get taken care of. If you go out of order, the priorities are off. So clean air, clean water, food, healthcare, housing, shelter. Those are all things I think every American will say, yes, those are important to everybody. We all should have access to those. And if anybody goes without, then that should be addressed. But we don't focus on those as in political discourse, especially in the era of, the internet and social media and 24-hour news cycles. We focus on the loudest voices, and the loudest voices tend to be on the very edges, who are screaming about gun rights, who are screaming about abortion rights. And those are important things, but they don't matter if you can't eat. If you're hungry or homeless, or you can't get health care to cure your cancer, it doesn't matter if I can go get married to my husband. It doesn't matter if I can go buy a 30-round magazine. If I can't feed my kids, then those things aren't as important.
Yeah, and why do you suppose it is that the extremes get the most attention? Because
they're the most divisive. If somebody says, I think everybody should be able to eat, everybody's going to go, yeah. You don't sell ad space that way. But if somebody says trans athletes are indoctrinating our kids, you're going to get responses. You're going to get knee-jerk responses, very emotional responses. And emotional responses are exactly what people want leading into a commercial. So like I said, the majority of Americans agree on the majority of issues, the same things. But we don't get the airtime because we're not going to sell ad space.
So, Joe, seems to me, and we don't have to get specific about the age, but I am a little older than you, and it seems to me in my lifetime, and you disclosed your political past, I'll disclose mine. I voted Republican since Reagan. In every presidential election, I voted Republican. Won some, Reagan. The first time Bush ran, but then lost, with Clinton.
Then you got Bush too.
You got Bush too. And then lost when Obama won. Mm-hmm. But my point is, I think I can say with a little bit of credibility, like you have a lot of credibility in your background as well, that I just have never seen a time where so many of our constitutional rights seem to be at risk or threatened openly. And I just made a few crib notes, and I want to see if you track with me on this. Free speech, the First Amendment, what's up with our world
right
today?
To peaceably
assemble and protest. Yeah. And the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment, due process. I never thought in my lifetime I'd see a time where federal agents could drive up in an unmarked van, get out and throw people inside, and boom, they're gone. And where's the right to due process? And we have people who believe the Constitution only guarantees right to due process to citizens. No, it's right to due process for everybody.
It says in the Constitution, all persons.
And that's what I'm assuming, as a member of our military, took a vow to protect.
I swore to uphold and protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and direct and domestic. And nothing has changed. Like I took that oath 25 plus years ago. None of my views have changed on that. You're talking about the First and the Fourth and the Fifth, the Sixth, the right to a speedy trial, the right to call your own witnesses and have counsel. We're not extending that right to people who are getting rounded up and sent to detention centers. We're not, the 10th Amendment, states' rights to, just because it's not in the Constitution doesn't mean the states don't have the right to do it. Well, people like to argue states' rights all the time when it comes to things like abortion and gun control, but when it comes to things like not letting armies of federal agents come into your cities, we throw away the 10th Amendment. And the Second Amendment, we're throwing away the Second Amendment now.
Well, and I wanted to get to the Second Amendment, but I want to wedge in there the 14th Amendment, the birthright citizenship. And that's on top of the table. And we're going to do away with that.
The 14th also, if you read it, it mentions again the due process for all persons.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah,
everybody.
It was. I mean, it's a post-Civil War.
But I never dreamed of a day where I would be arguing for the Second Amendment
against
Republicans and no infringement on our right to bear arms against people way to the right of me politically. But of course, don't you think that a lot of their motivation to have their positions relative to saying, for example, our president has said, just as recent as yesterday, that you can't take a gun to a protest. Well, guess what? If you're in Texas or Minnesota, a right to carry state, you can. I just never thought I would be hearing people in the MAGA-sphere or the far-right world saying that you don't have a right to bear arms. What? It's topsy-turvy.
And I hate using this term, but it's the most accurate because I've studied psychology and sociology and anthropology. It's cult mentality. It's I will justify anything if I can just admit that I'm not wrong. When the NRA and Kyle Rittenhouse call you out as they've done to Trump, maybe you're going a little too far.
Yeah, I think Kyle Rittenhouse went to a protest armed
and killed 3 people.
With a rifle, not just a pistol with a couple of magazines.
Well,
he didn't brandish it.
Who's that couple?
He brandished it. Oh, yeah, no, I know. The couple that...
There's a BLM protest.
Matter, and they're outside their house with guns. Yeah.
And then the RNC invited them to the 2020 convention.
They spoke at the convention. Yeah, but it sounds to me like you're a guy who says, hold on, I may agree with you 90% of the time, but this 10% is significant enough. I just got to call you out. Is that fair?
Yeah, because I am a gun owner.
As I am.
The whole idea of if you're going to go to a protest, you can't be armed. Spits in the whole. I have a lot of friends that were have always been very, very pro 2A, very pro Second Amendment. And the justification they've always brought is we need to be armed to fight against a tyrannical government. Fine. Now we seem to have a tyrannical government, and those people are saying, this isn't tyrannical. You guys you're overstating it. It's not that serious. It is that serious when American citizens are being assaulted, detained, and killed. It's very serious. So I would argue that any government that supports and enforces those things happening, I would call that a tyrannical government.
And I want to skate us out, not on the thin ice in terms of politics, but on the thin ice in the sense that there's a lot that we don't know. We can't look into the hearts of men and understand their motives. But what we can do is look at reality. We can look at video. It never did appear to me, and as many times as I watched it, that Renee Good was trying to drive over anybody. And it never did look to me, as many times as we've seen it now from so many different angles, that Alex Pretty was ever going for his gun. He never touched it. And so here we are immediately after both of those leading officials in our government. Now, I would be saying this if they were Democrats or if they're Republicans, but they come out and tell blatant falsehoods, what we used to call lies, to support or prompt a narrative that they really want us to believe. That's got to rock our sense of trust in the fabric of our government.
So, Danny, let me ask you this. If they're willing to lie on camera repeatedly about something that we all saw and we can verify is a lie, what are they lying to us about behind doors?
Stuff that we don't have video about.
Right. If they don't have witnesses, it's way easier for them to get away with it. The fact that we have witnessed literally dozens of digital witnesses that show the story and they are still sticking to their version of it.
Yeah.
And there are still people who are accepting that as this is how it is beyond me too. When you say, I never thought, you're right. This is dystopian. This is something out of 1984. This is something out of Idiocracy. Actually, no. To me, I always joke that the first Trump administration was Idiocracy. This is far worse. This is much more dangerous.
This is Orwellian.
This is Orwellian, yes. This is Aldous Huxley couldn't have written this. But that's why it's important for us to focus on what unites us, what we all have in common. Because when we do that, we'll realize we have more in common than we have different. Even the people who may be like, that's not so bad what's happening in Minneapolis. They still have issues paying for their groceries. They still have to worry about the ACA subsidies expiring and their health premiums going up. They still have to worry about the price of housing going up because Wall Street's buying up blocks and blocks of residential.
And that brings us right back to where we started and where I want us to talk about as we end. What, in your vision, Joe, what do you think you actually can do to bring us together, to help people from different sides of the political aisle come together on those things that we do agree about that are most important?
The first thing is things like this. Because putting yourself out there, especially in this climate, is scary for a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot to lose. They worry about their families, they worry about their businesses, they worry about how people in the community, their neighbors, are going to view them. That's why you'll see plenty of Republicans, campaign signs on lawns, but it's really hard to see Democrats. It doesn't mean that there aren't any. There's plenty of them, and more are showing up as we're getting the word out. But my goal is to say, hey, look, we get it. It's scary, but that's when you can be brave. Come out, see the people that maybe you thought up until recently were your enemies, were the other side, and just talk to them. Have conversations, dialogue about what's important, not what's separating us, but what puts us together. And when you have these conversations, you realize, okay, we were a lot more alike than we thought. And then other people will join in the conversation, and then more. And then you'll have, anytime you see protests in Abilene and it's 30, 40 people, the comments on social media is, oh, look, all 10 of them showed up. Yeah, there's not many of them now. But if they keep getting more, if one person joins every time, have you ever seen the movie Ants?
Yeah.
You remember that scene where the general, the guy in charge, is yelling at his guys for letting one of the ants get away with it? And he's showing the grain of, the grain hits him. Does that hurt? No, it's just one grain, whatever. Does it again? No, that's nothing. He opens the whole silo and they all come out. And he said, that's what they can't ever learn, that they have the numbers and they have the power. If they find that out, we're done. So that's my goal. Reaching out, I don't care, Democrat, Republican, independent, non-political. And that's one thing I hate. I'm not political. I hate when people say that because politics affects everybody. So you may not be political, but you need to understand how policies affect you and how your vote. And this is why, for my biggest part is the community outreach. And one of my biggest parts of community outreach is voter registration. I don't ask if you're registered Republican or Democrat. I don't care. I just want you to register because that's one of the things that we don't do as a society, especially the younger generations. The 55 and over, almost 100% registration rate. And they show up. They show up in person, they show up early. It's the youth, the 35 and under, who outnumber the 55 and over by a good 500,000 at least in Texas. But their registration numbers are significantly lower and their turnout rate are significantly lower because to them, they're so disenchanted because they're like, this doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. The elections are already decided by billionaires, which sadly is becoming more and more true. But if they come out and start voting for people who don't have corporate interests and PAC donors, and they vote for people who actually want to make change, we'll start changing the narrative, changing the, oh, my vote doesn't matter, into I'm one of those grains of sand, but when we all come together, we have the power. So that's where it comes down to messaging, talking to people about the things that are important to them, not things that are going to divide us, and reaching out to Republicans, and whether they're MAGA Republicans or disenchanted Republicans, I don't care. I'll talk to anybody so that we can find common ground. Because I don't think there's very many people in this country that I 100% disagree with. That'd be few and far between, and those would be really extreme cases. So in Abilene, especially given our family mentality, our community mentality that we've had since I was a kid, I think we can build that coalition of people who are like, yeah, this isn't working. Maybe I voted for this, and I thought I was sold a bill of goods, and now I see what's really happening. But I'm seeing what's happening to my fellow, Abilenians and my fellow Americans, and I can't let that fly anymore. So I need to make sure I stand up and I speak out against it and I vote against it. And so that's why I'm reaching out to the other day I registered a lady. I met her. I thought she was homeless. She wasn't. She was just waiting for a ride, but she wasn't registered. I didn't talk to her about my politics. I just asked her if she was registered. She said no. So I got her and her husband registered. So this weekend, this Saturday, actually, for anybody who needs to register, if you don't know if you're registered, if you're not sure, hey, I moved, what do I need to do? At 10 o'clock at the South Leggett headquarters of the Taylor County Democratic Party, we're going to have a discussion. We're going to talk about everything from how to vote or how to register to all your voting rights to the elections. Most Abilenians don't know we have 3 elections this year. They just think we have the one in November. We have the primaries in March, we have the local elections in May, and then we have the general election in November. But most people don't realize that because voter education is lacking.
And right now, if you register, plenty of time to register and vote in the primaries, much less the local elections in May.
The primary cutoff is Monday.
Oh,
that's why we're having this,
soon.
That's why we're having this event Saturday. So anybody who wants to register can come up. We have what are called VDRs, volunteer deputy registrars. We're with the county. We have all the paperwork. We've been through the training. Anybody needs to get registered as long as you meet the qualifications.
So Monday, February 2nd is the deadline to register to vote to participate in the primaries in March.
Correct, because the primaries are March 3rd, and to be registered, registration has to be at least 30 days before. So since February only has 28 days, it's February 2nd. So we're going to be, and anybody can come. Doesn't matter if you want to be involved with the party or not. It doesn't matter if you're going to vote Republican. We will register anybody. It's just about getting people together to know their rights, because this protesting and marching is great. That's important. But the most strong strength we have is in our vote, and we don't use it. Or we tend to vote against our best interests because we're voting for an R or a D, a blue or a red. And we need to get out of the mentality and look at what we're actually voting for or against.
I wonder if the Republicans hear you, watch you, get to know you, and think, "Dadgum, we should have returned that guy's call."
It wasn't even about who caught back to me. I wanted both of them to get back to me because I want to talk to both of them.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't have political ideology.
It sounds like you still do want to talk to both sides.
To everybody. If you're a Republican, if you're a disenchanted Republican, what do we call a non-MAGA Republican? Absolutely. If you are still a line towing Republican, I still want to talk to you because I want to know what is important to you and see if we can't find some common ground.
Let me end here. Are you a glass is half full or glass is half empty guy on all of this? You lean toward the optimism, or?
I am a what is in the glass kind of guy. Because depending on what's in the glass determines if I view it full or empty. So if it's something that is poisonous, it's half full. If it's something that we need, it's half empty. That's how I look at it.
Joe Calderon, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate it. And I want to give a shout out to our guest producer today, Daryl Smith, who stepped in for Travis Corrigan. Daryl's been over there at the switchboard making everything happen. And speaking of making it happen, you heard our man Joe talk about the importance of registering to vote. And if you're seeing or hearing this podcast prior to Monday, February 2nd, make sure that you register or you will not be able to vote in the primaries in March. The important thing is, as Joe has reminded us, vote. Whichever side you're on, register, get involved, vote. Thanks again, Joe.
Thank you.
Great conversation. And thank you for joining us here on Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims, and we will see you next time.